Welcome, David. It's nice to have you back.
Yes, indeed. The Kennerly room.
I was just going to say, here we are at Nathan's back room, which is really the ultimate homage to a photographer. For people in the audience who can't necessarily see, the room is surrounded with your photographs. And now you've done, well, it's not that you haven't done books before, but you've done a very special book, Extraordinary Circumstances, and it's about Gerald Ford. And I guess my first question is, did he know you were working on this book before his death? Did you talk to him about it?
I did. Yeah, it was in the works from February of '06, actually.
Did he consider this another one of his posthumous projects where, David, you can't run that picture until after I die?
No, it's not. I'm no Tom DeFrank.
Right.
I didn't write about his long, slow glide out of existence.
Right. But was he telling you anything that he would only want you to repeat after his death?
No, I mean, not really. This book really had the quotes from him were from a 1995 interview
that you did with
that I
him?
did on camera. Actually, Dirk Halstead shot it, and I went through the photos with him. But I used it for a CD project, so nothing had ever come of it. So the quotes, which were pretty honest,
yeah,
and there's not that much difference what he was saying about Reagan and all that. Then.
Did you find him generally always to be an easy person to talk to?
Oh yeah, he was very approachable.
I mean, did he let down comfortably? Because we have recently, the presidents of recent memory have not been people that we would think of as letting down comfortably. That's why.
You think they've all been kind of tightly wrapped?
Well, first of all, they haven't had people like you around. You know, you were
Thank God.
You were unique as a photographer for a president, and I doubt that any photographer since you has had the kind of access you had.
Well, the first, I was the third in line of a civilian White House photographers.
Because they'd always been military up until
military. You know, some outside guys like John Kennedy had Stan Tredick and
right.
Jacques Lowe and people coming in, but they weren't there all the time.
They didn't have an office in the White House.
Well, and one of the problems with the military guys, they couldn't be too pushy. You know, like during the missile crisis.
Was the commander-in-chief, after all.
The commander-in-chief, and during the Cuban Missile Crisis, during all those days, the photographer was never in the room,
right.
And I would have been in there for every minute of the day.
But people like Stan Tredick and Jacques Lowe, they were not in the White House itself. You had an office down in the White House. You were only steps away from the president at all time. Of course, you had a tank full of piranha fish in there. What was that all about?
No, they were not piranhas.
They weren't piranhas? You told me they were piranhas.
They were piranha-like.
You told me they were piranhas. You fed them, what did you feed them?
Excuse me.
You fed them.
My voice is shut. It's all like campaigning I've been doing.
Yes, exactly.
You
and Hillary.
They were African something fish.
Right, killer
but they
fish.
They were. They were probably worse than piranhas. Nobody was sticking their hands in the tank.
No, but what did you feed them?
The worst part of it was the National Enquirer, or one of those rags, did a story apparently about how we had this blood sport and Jack Ford would come down and feed them goldfish, and they compared me to a guard at Buchenwald.
Yeah. Well, you fed them living things too, didn't you?
Just other fish.
Other fish.
It was kind of a life cycle thing.
Did this
so actually,
ameliorate
it was
some,
it was very I would say analogous to Washington politics.
I was just going to say, I wondered if it responded to some needs you had that was prompted by your job. Well, I want to talk about the book and some of the pictures in it, and I'm going to hold them up. And this one intrigues me right off the bat, because this photograph is you can talk about them too.
Yeah.
This is not long after he took office, not as vice president.
Well, that's
but as
moments
president.
after he pardoned Richard Nixon.
Moments after he pardoned Richard Nixon. So what intrigued me about it is still up on the wall here are pictures of Nixon
and him as vice president.
And him as vice president,
Yeah.
which I think illustrates this that there was that this just happened so fast.
Well, it did. It happened. It was about. He was August 9th. That's when he took office.
Yeah.
That was September 8th.
Yeah.
So it was a month.
But even within the framework of that, you tell a story in the book about you had taken them out to dinner. You had taken the family out to dinner at, where did you go? What was the
In a
restaurant?
Chinese place.
Yeah, I don't remember what restaurant it was. I think it still exists. No, it was Old Angler's Inn. You took the. You took
Oh,
the
that's right. Yeah,
you
there was
took
another, actually, just one other story I would tell about when he was vice president in Vail. We went to a Chinese restaurant
Right.
for dinner one night, and they brought the fortune cookies around.
Right.
So everybody opened their fortune cookie, and he looked at his, and he slammed it down on the table. And so I
Right.
pried it out from under his hand and read it to everybody. It says, "You will undergo a change of residence in the near future."
And the family freaked out,
Well,
right?
he freaked
because
out.
they actually weren't looking forward to the idea of moving.
He didn't. He never wanted to appear to have pushed
to have the
Nixon
job.
out. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he was overly cautious about that.
Well,
really.
hugely disrupting for the family. I mean, they had a fairly settled existence out in the suburbs. Kids in school,
Yeah,
routine.
some of them liked it better than others, but the Old Angler's Inn was a week to the day.
Right.
It was the Friday before. It had been on the books. It was for Roy Rowan and Dave Burnett were there.
But you were hosting the dinner.
I was hosting the dinner and drove out there, and you know it's a long way to get out
Right,
there
out
from
Canal Road. Yep.
So he never let on, and the day before, Al Hagen told him about that, about the smoking gun tape,
right,
which
right.
about showing that Nixon was involved in the
That he was
cover-up.
going to have to give up the job.
That basically, he knew that he was going to become president, but he
Right.
didn't let on at all.
Was there anything?
Would have been a big news story.
Was there anything? Reflecting on that evening, was there anything
sorry about
about
that.
him that was different?
This only happens if
Only
you're doing
happens
an
in
interview.
interviews.
There we go.
That's okay. We're grassroots
Okay.
TV here.
It's my iPhone.
They're not sponsors,
Everybody's
but they're
got
welcome
them.
to be.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But reflecting back on that evening, was there anything you recall about him that may have been different in his demeanor, knowing what
He
you
had like
knew?
8 or 9 drinks.
No, I
No, he seemed, it was a long evening though, and reflecting back, I thought, because it was late and all that it seemed like he wanted to get out of there at some point, but nothing. He was such a
Do you think he told
pleasant
Betty
guy.
at that point?
unknown. I don't know.
You don't know.
No,
Do you know at all when he told the family what was
I
going
actually
to
don't
happen?
remember that.
Yeah, it'd
Yeah.
be interesting if they had any.
I'm sure he told her. I
But-
mean, they just shared everything. So
But still, their moving into the White House was so sudden that they actually lived at home in Alexandria for, I don't know, a week or
about
two?
a week or
Before they were
almost
able
10
to
days.
move in, before they could get all the Nixons.
That's right, and
Moved
one
out.
One of the photographs in there shows him in the early days at the desk and the empty shelves in the background.
Right.
And a photo of him as I think he put it, he was the first commuter president in the 20th century because he was going out of the door. It looked like an Ozzie and Harriet scene. You know, Mrs. Ford is behind the door saying, "Hurry home, darling."
Right,
You know, it was
right.
very bizarre.
You have a picture of her in here of the family in the house, and her hair, I believe, is up in what we used to call curlers. She's just,
Yeah.
She's
They
just
really did let me
have access.
have the whole thing. Yeah.
And how did the job come to pass? Because you were actually covering him for Time magazine. He had been given he was on the short list to be Nixon's vice president after Agnew resigned, and you were assigned by Time to go take a picture of him.
That's right. And so
And this was up at his office
that
on
morning.
the-
It was that Nixon was going to make the announcement that evening. It was a Friday.
And did you know that he was going to make the announcement that night?
I think we knew that there was going to be an announcement that night. But so I photographed then House Minority Leader Ford in his office, and I posed him by the window, and I took some portraits, and he said, "You're wasting your time," and I said, "Well, you'll have a nice picture for your wall."